Commander Deho stared at the glowing screen in front of him. The numbers kept changing, but they all said the same thing. Something bad was happening far away in space. Very bad. The monitoring station where he worked was quiet most days. It sat on the edge of known space, listening for signals from distant worlds. Most of the time, nothing interesting happened. Ships talked to each other. Planets sent normal messages. Everything was peaceful, but today was different. The signal came from the Valari system. Deho knew about the Valari people. They were gentle, beings made of living crystal. They never fought anyone. They spent their time making beautiful music and growing strange plants. Everyone in the galaxy liked them. Now they were screaming for help. Deho read the message again. His hands shook a little. The Kethran Empire had attacked the Valari homeworld. The insect-like Kethrans were known for being cruel. They conquered other worlds and made slaves of anyone who survived. The Valari had no weapons. No army. No way to fight back. The message said they would all be dead in 3 days. Dr. Mi-young, Deho called to the woman working at the next station. You need to see this. Dr. Mi-young came over quickly. She was a scientist who studied alien life forms. She had always been curious about species that lived far from their homeworlds. When she read the Valari message, her face went pale. How many ships do the Kethrans have there? She asked. The message says over 200. Warships, maybe 300. Deho felt sick. The Valari only have cargo ships, nothing that can fight. Dr. Mi-young sat down hard in a chair. We have to tell Captain Wu Jin right away. Captain Wu Jin commanded the Coalition fleet in this sector of space. The Coalition was supposed to keep peace between different alien species. But Deho knew the truth. The Coalition was weak. Their ships were old. Their weapons were not very strong. When Captain Wu Jin arrived at the station, he looked tired. He had been dealing with small problems all week. Pirates stealing cargo, border disputes between minor planets, normal stuff. This was not normal. How long until our ships can reach the Valari system? Captain Wu Jin asked after reading the message. Deho checked his computer. 5 days, sir. Maybe 6 if we push the engines hard. And the Valari will be dead in 3 days. Yes, sir. Captain Wu Jin walked around the small room. He was thinking hard. Deho could see the worry in his eyes. The Coalition had rules about helping member species, but they also had rules about not starting wars they could not win. How many ships can we send? The captain asked. 12, sir. Maybe 15 if we pull ships from other sectors. Against 300 Kethran warships. Captain Wu Jin laughed, but it was not a happy sound. We would be flying to our deaths, and the Valari would still die. Dr. Mi-young had been quiet, but now she spoke up. There might be another way. Both men looked at her. She seemed nervous, like she was about to say something dangerous. The humans, she said quietly. The room went completely silent. Deho felt. His blood turned cold. Captain Wu Jin stepped back like she had hit him. Nobody talked about the humans, not officially. There were rules against it. The Sol system where Earth was located had been quarantined for over 300 years. No one was allowed to go there. No one was allowed to contact them. There were stories, though, whispered tales that older aliens told when they thought no one was listening. Stories about a species so violent and dangerous that the entire galaxy had agreed to lock them away. That's impossible, Captain Wu Jin said. The quarantine laws say we cannot visit their system, Dr. Mi-young interrupted. They say we cannot trade with them or make treaties, but they do not say we cannot send them a message. Deho had heard some of the stories about humans. They came from a death world, a planet so dangerous that just living there made them into perfect killing machines. They could breathe poison gas. They could survive in freezing cold or burning heat. They healed from wounds that would kill other species. Even if we could contact them, Captain Wu Jin said, why would they help? The stories say they hate all aliens. I have been studying their old transmissions, Dr. Mi Young said. From before the quarantine, they are not just killers, they have something they call honor. They protect those who cannot protect themselves. You have been studying human transmissions? Captain Wu Jin stared at her. That is against regulations. The Valari are going to die, Dr. Mi Young said firmly. If there is any chance the humans might help them, we have to try. Daeho looked at his screen again. The Valari distress signal was still coming in. He could almost hear the fear in the electronic voice. Millions of innocent beings were about to be slaughtered. Sir, he said slowly, Dr. Mi Young is right. We cannot save the Valari, but maybe the humans can. Captain Wu Jin was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was very soft. If we do this, and the coalition finds out, we will all be arrested, maybe executed. If we do not do this, Daeho replied, the Valari will definitely be executed. Dr. Mi Young pulled up a star chart on her computer. I know the frequency the humans used for emergency communications. It is very old, but their computers might still be listening. Captain Wu Jin closed his eyes. When he opened them, he looked like he had aged 10 years. Do it, he said. Daeho began working on his communication system. His hands moved quickly over the controls. He had to change many settings to reach the Sol system. The signal would take several hours to get there. What should the message say? He asked. Dr. Mi Young thought for a moment. Keep it simple. Tell them about the Valari. Tell them innocent people are dying. Ask for help. Daeho typed the message carefully. He included the Valari distress signal and information about the Kethran attack. He added the location of the Valari system and how much time was left. Then he stopped. His finger was over the send button, but he could not press it. Once we send this, he said, there is no going back. If the humans respond, everything will change. If they respond, Captain Wu Jin said, we might save the Valari. If they do not respond, we are no worse off than we are now. Dr. Mi Young nodded. The humans have been silent for 300 years. Maybe they are all dead. Maybe their civilization collapsed. Maybe they will ignore us. Or maybe, Daeho said quietly, they will come. He pressed the button. The message shot out into space, traveling faster than light toward the Sol system, toward Earth, toward the humans. The three aliens stood in the quiet monitoring station, watching the communication board. The signal was gone now, racing through the darkness between stars. How long until we know if they received it? Captain, Wu Jin asked. If their computers are still working, they should get it in 4 hours, Daeho said. If they decide to respond, we might hear back in 8 hours. And if they decide to help? Dr. Mi Young checked her calculations. Their ships were very fast, according to the old records. They could reach the Valari system in less than 2 days. They waited. The hours passed slowly. Daeho kept checking for any reply from the Sol system. Nothing came. Captain Wu Jin left to check on his ships. Dr. Mi Young went back to her work, but Daeho could see she was not really concentrating. As the 8th hour approached, Daeho began to lose hope. Maybe the humans were gone. Maybe their communication systems were broken. Maybe they just did not care about alien problems. Then his computer made a sound. A new signal was coming from the Sol system. Not a message. Something else. Daeho stared at his screen in shock. The signal was faint, but it was there. Something in the Sol system was powering up. Something big, very big. Dr. Mi Young, he called. His voice was barely a whisper. I think they heard us. The signal from Earth grew stronger. Then it multiplied. More power sources were coming online, lots of them. Dr. Mi Young ran to his station. When she saw the readings, she grabbed his arm. Dear spirits, she whispered. How many ships do they have? The power signatures kept growing. 40, 50, more. Somewhere in the darkness around Earth, the human fleet was waking up, and they were coming. Admiral Hyun-soo opened his eyes for the first time in 200 years. The cryopod around him hissed as warm air began to flow. His body felt stiff and cold, but that was normal after long sleep. The Admiral had done this many times before. He knew how to wake up from the deep freeze that kept humans alive during long space voyages. Red lights flashed around him. That was not normal. He sat up slowly, his joints creaking like old metal. The chamber around him was dark except for the emergency lights. Through the thick glass window, he could see other cryopods opening. His crew was waking up too. A voice spoke from the ship's computer. Admiral Hyun-soo, please report to the command bridge immediately. Priority Alpha message received. Priority Alpha. That was the highest emergency level. The Admiral had not heard those words in over 2 centuries. He pulled on his uniform and walked through the corridors of his ship. The Indomitable was huge, even by human standards. It was 3 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. But it was just one ship in the human fleet. Other crew members were stumbling through the hallways, still waking up from their long sleep. They looked confused but ready. These were soldiers who had trained their whole lives for war. Even after sleeping for 200 years, they knew their jobs. Captain So-ra was already on the bridge when the Admiral arrived. She commanded the destroyer Soul's Fury, one of the fastest ships in the fleet. Her short black hair was messy from the cryopod, but her eyes were sharp and alert. What woke us up? Admiral Hyun-soo asked as he sat in his command chair. Distress signal, sir. So-ra handed him a tablet. Coalition species asking for help. Something called the Valari are under attack. The Admiral read the message quickly. His face grew dark as he learned about the Kethran invasion. Innocent people were dying while he read about it. How long has the fleet been asleep? He asked. 207 years, sir, replied Lieutenant Ye Jin from the communications station. She was young, maybe 25, but she had been chosen for this mission because she was the best at her job. The Coalition quarantined our system in 2180. We have been waiting ever since. Admiral Hyun-soo remembered those days. Humanity had been expanding through the galaxy, making contact with alien species. Some meetings had gone well, others had not. There had been wars, terrible wars that left entire star systems empty. The other aliens had grown afraid of humanity. They said humans were too violent, too dangerous to be allowed to roam free, so they had built a wall of space around the Sol system. No one could get in or out. The human government had agreed to the quarantine, but only with conditions. They would stay in their system, but they would also build a fleet that would wait and watch. If any innocent species ever called for help, the humans would answer. Status report on all ships, the Admiral ordered. Lieutenant Ye Jin worked at her station for several minutes. 47 ships responding, sir. All crews awakening. All systems showing green. 47 ships. Admiral Hyun-soo smiled grimly. When they had first been quarantined, the humans had only 12 ships, but they had spent 2 centuries building more. Building better ones. Engineer Tae-sung, report to the bridge, the Admiral said into his communicator. Tae-sung arrived a few minutes later, still putting on his engineer's jacket. He was a thin man with clever eyes who understood machines better than most people understood themselves. He had designed many of the weapons that made human ships so feared. How long until all ships are ready to move? Admiral Hyun-soo asked. Him. 6 hours, sir. Maybe 5 if we skip some of the safety checks. Skip them. We leave in 4 hours. Tae-sung nodded and hurried away. The Admiral turned to his navigation officer. Plot a course for the Valari system. Maximum speed. Sir, Captain So-ra said carefully, we have been out of contact with the galaxy for over 200 years. We do not know what has changed. Maybe we should be more careful. Admiral Hyun-soo looked at her. Sora was a good officer and a smart woman, but she had not lived through the early days of human expansion like he had. She had not seen what happened when innocent people had no one to protect them. Captain, read the message again. How long do the Valari have? Sora checked the tablet. 36 hours, sir. Maybe less. Then we do not have time to be careful. The Admiral stood up and walked to the large window that looked out into space. In the distance, he could see other human ships. Dark shapes against the stars, but growing brighter as their engines came online. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering. The destroyers were fast and deadly. The cruisers carried enough firepower to level mountains. The battleships were flying fortresses that could fight entire fleets alone, and they had been waiting for this moment for 200 years. Lieutenant Ye-jin, the Admiral said, open a channel to all ships. Channel open, sir. Admiral Hyun-soo spoke in a voice that carried to every human ship in the fleet. Attention all vessels. This is Admiral Hyun-soo aboard the Indomitable. We have received a distress call from an innocent species under attack. This is what we have been waiting for. This is why we built this fleet. He paused, looking out at his ships. We are no longer quarantined. We are no longer hiding. Today, humanity returns to the galaxy, and we return as protectors. The response was immediate. Across the fleet, crews cheered. Engines that had been cold for centuries roared to life. Weapon systems that had never been fired began charging. Sir, Lieutenant Ye-jin said, I am picking up communications from outside the Sol system. The Coalition monitoring stations are detecting our power signatures. What are they saying? Ye-jin listened to her equipment for a moment. Then she looked up with wide eyes. Panic, sir. Complete panic. They are sending emergency messages to every Coalition world. Admiral Hyun-soo was not surprised. The galaxy had spent 2 centuries telling stories about humanity. Most of those stories made humans sound like monsters, like demons that ate planets and drank the blood of stars. Some of the stories were not that far from the truth. Captain Sora, the Admiral said, take your ship and scout ahead. I want to know what we are flying into. Yes, sir. Sora saluted and headed for the door. My ship will be ready in 2 hours. As she left, Engineer Tae-sung returned to the bridge. He looked excited like a child with a new toy. Admiral, all weapon systems are online. The new gravity disruptors are working perfectly. The quantum torpedoes are ready for testing. Admiral Hyun-soo nodded. Humanity had not wasted their time during the quarantine. They had studied every battle they had ever fought. They had learned from every mistake. The weapons on these ships were 200 years more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. What about the Coalition ships? The Admiral asked. Will they try to stop us? Lieutenant Ye-jin checked her communications again. Their nearest fleet is 40 ships, sir. But they are moving away from us, not toward us. That made sense. The Coalition remembered the old stories, too. They knew that human ships were dangerous. They would not risk a fight unless they had no choice. Time to departure? Admiral Hyun-soo asked. 3 hours and 20 minutes. Engineer Tae-sung replied. The Admiral sat back in his command chair. In a few hours, the human fleet would leave the Sol system for the first time in over 2 centuries. They would travel across the galaxy to fight an enemy they had never seen, to save a species they had never met. It felt good. Sir, Lieutenant, Ye-jin said, I am receiving more communications from Coalition space. The Kethrin Empire is sending messages, too. What do the Kethrins want? They are asking who humans are, sir. They want to know if we are a threat to their operations. Admiral Hyun-soo smiled. It was not a nice smile. Send them a message, Lieutenant. Tell them they will find out soon enough. As the hours passed, more systems came online. The fleet grew, brighter and more powerful. Human ships that had slept like giant metal dragons were waking up and stretching their wings. Captain Sora's destroyer was the first to leave. The Soul's fury shot away from the fleet like a silver arrow, heading for the jump point that would take it to distant stars. One by one, the other ships followed. Destroyers and cruisers and massive battleships all moving in perfect formation. They had practiced this many times in computer simulations during their long sleep. Admiral Hyun-Soo's flagship was the last to leave, as the Indomitable passed. The edge of the Sol system, he looked back at Earth. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from space. It was hard to believe that such a beautiful world had produced the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Course set for the Valari system, the navigation officer reported. Travel time at maximum speed, 34 hours. Make it 30, Admiral Hyun-Soo ordered. The human fleet jumped into hyperspace, leaving behind trails of exotic energy that would scar space-time for years to come. They were no longer hiding. They were no longer waiting. The humans were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. Queen General Skrith felt the vibrations through her ship's hull as another Valari city fell to her warriors. The crystalline beings below put up no resistance. They simply sang their death songs as Kethrin's soldiers smashed their beautiful homes and dragged away survivors for the slave markets. It was almost too easy. Skrith was ancient by Kethrin standards. She had lived for over 400 years and conquered dozens of worlds. Her black carapace was scarred from countless battles. Her 4 arms ended in razor-sharp claws that had personally killed thousands of enemies. But something was bothering her today. War Master Clack, she called to her chief general. Report on the conquest. Clack scuttled over on his 6 legs. He was young for a Kethrin leader, only 60 years old, but he was ambitious and cruel. Perfect qualities for serving the Empire. 80% of the Valari population has been captured or eliminated, Clack reported. Resistance is minimal. The remaining cities will fall within hours. And our losses? Negligible, my queen. Perhaps a dozen warriors wounded. None killed. Skrith nodded, but the feeling of unease would not go away. The Valari were too peaceful, too trusting. In her experience, easy conquests often led to unexpected problems later. Have our scouts detected any coalition response? She asked. A few monitoring ships on the edge of the system, but they keep their distance. The coalition is weak. They will do nothing. That should have made Skrith feel better, but it did not. Something was wrong. She could sense it in the way space itself seemed to vibrate around them. On the planet below, Elder Kyrim stood in the ruins of her city. The Valari leader was tall and graceful, her crystalline body reflecting rainbow colors, even in the dim light of the burning buildings around her. Her people were dying. The songs that had filled their cities for thousands of years were becoming cries of pain and fear. The Kethrans showed no mercy, even to the youngest Valari children, but Kyrim had not given up hope. 3 days ago, her scientists had managed to send a distress signal into space before the Kethrans destroyed their communication centers. The message had been sent to the Coalition, but also to other frequencies. Old frequencies that few species remembered, including one that led to a quarantine system called Sol.Kyrim did not know much about humans. Few species did. They were legends now, stories told to frighten young aliens. But some of those stories said that humans protected those who could not protect themselves. She hoped the stories were true. Above the planet, War Master Clack was inspecting the next city to be attacked when his communications officer buzzed with alarm. Sir, we are receiving strange signals from the edge of the system. Coalition reinforcements? Clack asked without much interest. The Coalition fleet was pathetic. Even if they sent 100 ships, the Kethrans could destroy them easily. No. Sir, these signatures are different. I have never seen anything like them. Clack moved to the sensor station. What he saw there made his 4 eyes widen in surprise. Ships were entering the system, but they were unlike anything in the Kethran. Databases. They were huge, dark, and they moved through space with a grace that seemed impossible for such massive vessels. How many? Clack demanded. 47 contacts, sir, all larger than our battle cruisers. Clack felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. The Kethrin fleet had over 300 ships in this system, but they were mostly smaller vessels. 47. Large ships could be a serious threat. "Send a challenge," he ordered. "Find out who they are and what they want." The message was transmitted toward the unknown fleet. The response came back in perfect galactic trade language, but spoken with an accent that no living Kethrin had ever heard. "This is Captain So-Ra of the human destroyer Soul's Fury. Identify yourself and state your business in this system." Human Clack felt his legs go weak. Every Kethrin learned about humans in their youth, not from recent history, but from genetic memories passed down through their hive mind, ancient memories of terror and death. "Sir," his communications officer asked, "should I respond?" "Send word to Queen General Skrith immediately," Clack whispered. "Tell her the humans have returned." On the planet's surface, Elder Kyrim felt a change in the vibrations that all Valari could sense through their crystalline bodies. Something new had entered their system, something powerful. She looked up at the sky and began to sing. Not a death song this time, but a song of hope. Queen General Skrith received Clack's message while she was inspecting captured Valari crystals in her ship's cargo hold. When she read the words, she dropped the beautiful crystal she had been examining. It shattered on the metal floor. Humans. After 3 centuries of silence, they had come. Skrith's genetic memories flooded back to her. Images passed down from her ancestors who had encountered humans during the early expansion period. She saw human ships appearing out of nowhere to destroy Kethrin supply convoys. She felt the terror of Kethrin warriors as human soldiers boarded their vessels. She remembered the day of silence, when an entire Kethrin invasion fleet had simply vanished. 3,000 ships and millions of warriors gone without a trace. The only evidence they had ever existed was a single message transmitted. "Across all frequencies, this is humanity. The Zephyrians are under our protection. Any further aggression against them will result in your complete annihilation. The Kethrins had never attacked the Zephyrians again." "My queen," War Master Clack's voice came through her communicator. "The human ship is requesting that we withdraw from the system immediately." "How many human ships?" Skrith asked, though she dreaded the answer. 47, my queen, all heavily armed." Skrith closed her 4 eyes and tried to think. The Kethrin Empire was powerful now, much stronger than it had been 3 centuries ago. They had better weapons, stronger armor, faster ships. Maybe they could fight the humans and win, but genetic memory whispered warnings. Humans did not make idle threats. If they said they would destroy the Kethrin fleet, they meant it. "Send a response," Skrith ordered. "Tell them this system belongs to the Kethrin Empire by right of conquest. They have no authority here." She knew it was a mistake, even as she said it. But she was a Kethrin Queen General. She could not show weakness in front of her warriors. The human response came back quickly. This time, it was not from the single ship, but from the entire fleet. 47 voices speaking as one. "This is Admiral Hyun Soo of the Human Defense Fleet. The Valari are peaceful beings under our protection. You have 1 hour to begin withdrawing from this system. Any ships remaining after that time will be destroyed." 1 hour. Skrith laughed bitterly. The humans were giving her a choice, retreat or die. But she was Kethrin. Her species had conquered half the galaxy through strength and determination. They did not run from threats. "War Master Clack," she ordered. "Form battle lines. All ships to combat stations." "My queen," Clack replied nervously. "Perhaps we should consider their offer. The old stories are just stories," Skrith snarled. "We are not our ancestors. The Kethrin Empire bows to no one." But even as she said it, Skrith could feel doubt gnawing at her confidence. The human ships had not attacked yet, but they moved through space with a predatory grace that made her skin crawl. On the bridge of the Soul's Fury, Captain Sora watched the Kethrin fleet form up for battle. The insect ships were ugly things, all sharp angles and aggressive spines. They looked like the creatures that built them, designed for nothing but war. Admiral Hyun-Soo is requesting a status report, Lieutenant Ye-jin said from the communication station. Tell him the Kethrins are preparing to fight, Sora replied. They have not accepted our ultimatum. Should we wait for the main fleet to arrive? Sora smiled coldly. One human destroyer against a Kethrin supply convoy. I like those odds. She had spotted a group of 6 Kethrin ships moving away from the main battle line. They were carrying captured Valari to processing stations in the outer system. Slow, heavily loaded, and lightly defended. Perfect targets. Helm, set intercept course for those cargo ships. Maximum acceleration. The Soul's Fury leaped forward like a hunting cat. It was smaller than most of the ships in the human fleet, but it was fast and deadly. Its weapons were designed for precision, strikes against multiple targets. The Kethrin cargo ships never had a chance. Sora's destroyer dropped out of hyperspace directly in front of the convoy. Before the Kethrins could react, the human ship opened fire. The weapons that Engineer Tae-sung had designed did not just destroy targets, they unmade them. Quantum torpedoes tore holes in space-time itself. Gravity cannons created miniature black. Holes that consumed anything nearby. In 30 seconds, 6 Kethrin ships simply ceased to exist. The Soul's Fury transmitted a message to the Valari prisoners who had been aboard the cargo ships. This is Captain Sora of the Human Defense Fleet. You are safe now. Rescue ships are on the way. Then, the destroyer vanished back into hyperspace, leaving behind only debris and confused Kethrin survivors. War Master Clack stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. 6 ships had been destroyed so quickly that his computers had barely registered the attack. The human destroyer had appeared, fired, and disappeared like a ghost. My queen, he reported to Skrith. The cargo convoy has been eliminated, all ships destroyed. Admiral Hyun-Soo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the Kethrin fleet scramble to form defensive positions. 300 alien ships spread across space like angry insects, their weapons charging and their armor plates shifting into combat configuration. It was impressive in a way. The Kethrins had built a formidable war machine during humanity's long absence. Their ships were larger than he remembered, their weapons more advanced. Any other species in the galaxy would have retreated in fear. But Admiral Hyun-Soo was not impressed. He was insulted. Lieutenant Ye-jin, he said calmly, open a channel to all human ships. Channel open, sir. The Admiral's voice carried to every vessel in his fleet. 47 ships that had been sleeping for 2 centuries, now fully awake and hungry for battle. All ships, this is Admiral Hyun-Soo. The Kethrins have refused our generous offer to leave peacefully. They have chosen to make a stand over the bodies of innocent Valari. This is unacceptable. He paused, watching the enemy fleet on his tactical display. So many ships, so many targets. You have trained for this moment your entire lives. You are the finest warriors humanity has ever produced. Today, we remind the galaxy why they were afraid of us. All ships, weapons free. Show them no mercy. The response was immediate. Across the human fleet, weapon systems that had been charging for hours finally reached full power. The space around each ship began to shimmer as gravity fields warped and twisted. Captain Sora's destroyer Soul's Fury was already moving. She had rejoined the fleet after her successful attack on the Kethrin cargo ships, and now she led the advance. Her ship danced through space like a living thing, too fast for the enemy sensors to track properly. Behind her came the cruisers and battleships moving in perfect formation. Each ship was a work of art, designed not just for war but for the complete annihilation of anything that stood in their way. Engineer Tae-sung monitored the weapon systems from his station on the Indomitable. Everything was working perfectly. 200 years of careful preparation were about to pay off. "Admiral," he reported, "all ships report ready for combat. Gravity disruptors are online. Quantum torpedo tubes are loaded. Nova cannons are charged. And ready." Admiral Hyun-soo nodded. "Begin the attack." Queen General Skrith watched the human fleet approach and felt her confidence crumble like sand. The human ships moved wrong. They slipped through space as if the normal laws of physics did not apply to them. Their weapon signatures were unlike anything in her databases. "War Master Clack," she ordered, "concentrate all fire on their lead ship. Destroy it quickly, and maybe the others will retreat." It was a desperate plan, but it was all she had. Every Catherine's ship in the system turned its weapons toward Captain Sora's destroyer. 300 ships fired at once. The space around the Soul's Fury filled with energy beams, plasma bolts, and missile trails. Enough firepower to level a mountain range struck the small human ship. The Soul's Fury emerged from the attack completely undamaged. Captain Sora laughed as the enemy weapons bounced harmlessly off her ship's shields. "Is that the best you can do?" She asked no one in particular. The destroyer's return fire was precise and devastating. Sora had selected her targets carefully, the 3 largest Catherine battleships in the enemy formation, ships that had taken years to build and carried thousands of warriors each. Her gravity cannons fired 3 times. 3 miniature black holes appeared in the middle of the Catherine fleet. They lasted only microseconds, but that was enough. The enemy battleships were pulled apart at the molecular level, their atoms scattered across light years of space. 3,000 Catherine warriors simply ceased to exist. "Target destroyed," Sora reported calmly. Moving to next objective. The rest of the human fleet opened fire. Admiral Hyun-soo had seen many battles in his long career, but this was different. This was not a fight. It was an execution. Human weapons tore through Catherine's ships like paper. The quantum torpedoes that Engineer Tae-sung had designed did not just explode. They created tears in space-time that consumed everything within miles. Enemy ships disappeared into holes in reality itself. The Nova cannons were even worse. They fired compressed stars that burned at temperatures that should not have been possible. Anything they touched was instantly vaporized, along with anything nearby. But the most terrifying weapon was the gravity disruptor. It could reach across thousands of miles to grab enemy ships and crush them like toys. Massive Catherine cruisers folded in on themselves as artificial gravity fields collapsed their hulls. "Lieutenant Ye-jin," Admiral Hyun-soo said as he watched. Another group of enemy ships vanished from his display. "Patch me through to the Catherine command ship." "Channel open, sir." "Queen General Skrith," the Admiral said, his voice carrying across space to the alien commander. "This is your final warning. Surrender now, and your surviving ships will be allowed to leave this system. Continue fighting, and every Catherine in this fleet will die." On her command ship, Queen General Skrith stared at the tactical display in horror. In less than 20 minutes, she had lost over half her fleet. The humans were not just winning, they were slaughtering her forces without taking a single casualty. But she was Catherine. Her species did not surrender. "War Master Clack," she ordered, "form up the remaining ships. We charge their flagship directly. All ships. Ramming speed." It was suicide, but it was the only option left. Maybe they could take some humans with them when they died. Clack gathered the surviving Catherine ships and led them in a desperate charge toward the Indomitable. 90 ships, all that remained of the mighty invasion fleet, screaming through space in a final attack. Admiral Hyun-soo watched them come and felt nothing but pity. "Engineer Tae-sung, activate the defensive grid." "Yes, sir." The space around the Indomitable suddenly filled with energy barriers and particle fields. The human flagship did not even slow down as the Kethran ships crashed into the barriers. They simply bounced off or were torn apart by the defensive systems. Not one enemy ship got within 1,000 miles of the human flagship. That was disappointing, Admiral Hyun-Soo said quietly. Below on the planet, Elder Kyrim felt the battle through the vibrations in her crystalline body. The songs of her people had changed from despair to hope as they realized they were being rescued. She could see the flashes of light in the sky where ships were dying. But somehow she knew that none of those lights represented human casualties. The humans were winning. The humans were saving her people. Lieutenant Ye-jin looked up from her station. Admiral, I am receiving surrender signals from the remaining Kethran ships. Admiral Hyun-Soo checked his tactical display. 23 ships left out of over 300. The battle had lasted less than an hour. Accept their surrender, he ordered, but keep our weapons trained on them. If any of them so much as twitch, destroy them. Yes, sir. On the Kethran command ship, Queen General Skrith slumped in her command chair. Around her, the bridge was filled with smoke and the smell of burning electronics. Most of her fleet was gone. Most of her warriors were dead, and the humans had barely broken a sweat. My queen, War Master Clack said quietly. What are your orders? Skrith looked at the tactical display one last time. The human ships hung in space like dark angels, their weapons still glowing with deadly energy. Beautiful and terrible beyond description. Send word to the Empire, she said finally. Tell them the humans have returned. Tell them to avoid human space at all costs. She paused, watching the human flagship on her screen. Tell them we have awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. Captain Sora was already heading for the planet's surface. Her ship's sensors could detect thousands of Valari life signs scattered across the surface. Many were wounded. All were terrified. Lieutenant, open a channel to the Valari survivors, she ordered. Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Sora of the Human Defense Fleet, she said in the gentle tone she used when speaking to civilians. You are safe now. We are sending medical teams to help your wounded. The Kethrans will not harm you again. On the planet's surface, Elder Kyrim heard the human woman's voice and wept tears of crystal. Her people would live. The songs would continue. She looked up at the sky, where human ships were already beginning to descend toward the surface. Rescue ships carrying doctors and food and hope. Thank you, she whispered in her own language, knowing somehow that the humans would understand. Admiral Hyun-Soo stood on the bridge of his flagship and surveyed the aftermath of the battle. Kethran debris floated in silent clouds around his ships. The survivors were already jumping to hyperspace, fleeing toward their home worlds with news of humanity's return. It had been a good day. Engineer Tae-sung, he said, damage report. No damage to any human ships, sir, Tae-sung replied with obvious pride. 0 casualties. All weapon systems performed exactly as designed. And the Valari? Lieutenant Ye-jin checked her communications. Captain Sora reports millions of survivors, sir. The medical teams are already at work. Most of the wounded will recover fully. Admiral Hyun-Soo nodded with satisfaction. This was why humanity had built this fleet. This was why they had waited in the cold darkness for 2 centuries, to protect those who could not protect themselves, to be the sword and shield of the innocent, to remind the galaxy that some things were worth fighting for. 3 days after the battle, Elder Kyrim stood in what had once been her city's central plaza. The beautiful crystal spires were broken and scarred, but her people were alive. That was what mattered. Around her, human medical teams worked alongside Valari healers to treat the wounded. The humans moved with gentle efficiency, their advanced equipment rebuilding damaged crystal limbs and healing injuries that would have been fatal just days ago. Captain Sora approached across the plaza. The human woman looked different when she was not commanding a warship. smaller somehow, more human, but Kairim could still see the steel in her eyes. "Elder," Captain Sora said, bowing in the Valari fashion. "How are your people?" "They live," Kairim replied simply. "Because of you. Because of all humans. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid." Sora shook her head. "You owe us nothing. This is what we do. What we have always done." Kairim studied the human woman's face. "Your people spent 200 years in isolation. Why did you come when we called?" "Because you needed help," Sora answered. "Because no one else would come. Because it was the right thing to do." The Valari elder began to sing softly. It was a new song, one that had not existed before the humans arrived. A song of gratitude and hope that would be passed down through generations of her people. High above the planet, Admiral Hyun-Soo received a priority message from Coalition Space. Captain Wu Jin was requesting permission to approach the human fleet. The Coalition commander wanted to talk. "Shall I grant permission?" Lieutenant Yejin asked. "Yes," Admiral Hyun-Soo replied, "but keep our weapons ready, just in case." Captain Wu Jin's ship approached slowly, broadcasting peaceful intentions on every frequency. When he was finally allowed aboard the Indomitable, the Coalition officer looked nervous but determined. Admiral Hyun-Soo met him in the ship's conference room. Dr. Mi Young was there too, having been transported from the monitoring station where she had first suggested contacting the humans. "Admiral," Captain Wu Jin began, "I am here to offer the Coalition's formal thanks for saving the Valari." "You are welcome," Admiral Hyun-Soo replied. "But I assume you want to discuss more than just thanks." Wu Jin nodded. "The galaxy has changed. Admiral, your return has created ripples. Every government is reassessing their policies. Every military is updating their threat assessments. And what does the Coalition want from humanity?" Dr. Mi Young spoke up. "An alliance, Admiral. The Coalition needs your strength. And perhaps humanity needs our knowledge of the current galaxy." Admiral Hyun-Soo considered this. During their long isolation, humanity had lost touch with galactic politics. They did not know which species were friends and which were enemies. They did not understand the complex relationships that had developed over 2 centuries. "What kind of alliance?" he asked. "A defensive pact," Captain Wu Jin explained. "The Coalition agrees to share intelligence and provide diplomatic support. In return, humanity helps protect Coalition member species from threats like the Kethrans." "We would do that anyway," Admiral Hyun-Soo pointed out. "Yes," Dr. Mi Young said with a smile. "But this way it would be legal, official. The galaxy would have to accept humanity's return as legitimate." Admiral Hyun-Soo thought about this for a long moment. Legitimacy had its advantages. It would be easier to operate if they did not have to fight both their enemies and the Coalition. "I will consider your proposal," he said finally. "But understand this. Humanity will not be bound by Coalition rules that prevent us from protecting the innocent. We have our own code of honor." "We would not ask you to abandon your principles," Captain Wu Jin assured him. "The galaxy needs those principles now more than ever." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the news of humanity's return was spreading like wildfire. On Kethrin Prime, the Empire's ruling council met in emergency session. Queen General Skrith's report had shaken them to their core. The humans were not just back. They were stronger than anyone had imagined. "We must avoid human space completely," advised General Vrex, the oldest member of the council. "Cancel all expansion into that sector. Pull back our border fleets." "You would have us cower in fear?" demanded General Thak, who was younger and more aggressive. "I would have us survive," Vrex replied coldly. "Read the battle reports. 300 ships destroyed in less than an hour, 0 human casualties. This is not an enemy we can fight." Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. Species that had grown aggressive during humanity's absence suddenly found themselves reconsidering their expansion plans. The hegemony of Claw, a militant lizard species, immediately recalled their invasion fleets from 3 star systems. The Syndicate of Thorns, a collection of pirate organizations, disbanded entirely rather than risk encountering human ships. Fear spread through the galaxy like a plague, but not all the reactions were negative. On Sanctuary Station, the galaxy's largest refugee center, the news brought hope instead of terror. Millions of beings from dozens of species had fled there to escape various conflicts. Now they had reason to believe that someone might actually help them reclaim their homes. Commander Deho, the coalition officer who had first sent the distress signal to Earth, found himself promoted to the rank of Admiral and placed in charge of human coalition relations. It was a job that had not existed a week ago. His first official meeting with Admiral Hyun-soo took place aboard the Indomitable. The human ship was unlike anything Deho had ever seen. Every surface seemed to be made of some kind of advanced metal that absorbed light. The corridors were wide enough to move heavy equipment quickly. Everything was designed for efficiency and war. Admiral Deho, Hyun-soo greeted him formally. I understand you were the one who sent us the distress signal. Yes, sir. Dr. Myung suggested it, but I made the decision to transmit. Then the Valari owe their lives to you, Admiral Hyun-soo said. As do we. You gave us the chance to do what we were built for. Deho felt a surge of pride, but also worry. Admiral, may I speak freely? Of course. The galaxy is afraid of you. Of all humans. The old stories, the legends. Many species would rather flee their home worlds than face your ships in battle. Admiral Hyun-soo nodded. Good. Fear will keep the predators away from their prey. Fear will make the aggressive species think twice before starting wars. But fear can also lead to desperation, Deho warned. Desperate people do stupid things. What if some species decide to attack you first, before you can attack them? Then they will learn why that is a mistake, Admiral Hyun-soo replied calmly. Back. On Valari Prime, Elder Kyrim was composing a formal message of gratitude to the human fleet, but she was also working on something else. A proposal for the Coalition Council. She wanted the Valari to join the new alliance between humanity and the Coalition. Her people had no weapons and no military, but they had other gifts. They were natural diplomats, able to sense the emotions of other species through their crystalline bodies. They could help bridge the gap between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Engineer Tae-sung was working on a different kind of bridge. Admiral Hyun-soo had authorized him to share some human medical technology with the Coalition. Not weapons, but tools that could save lives. The artificial organs that could replace damaged body parts. The nanosurgeons that could repair injuries at the cellular level. The genetic therapies that could cure diseases that had plagued other species for millennia. It was a gesture of good faith, but it was also practical. Healthy allies were stronger allies. Lieutenant Ye Jin had been assigned to establish humanity's first embassy in Coalition space. She would be working closely with Dr. Mi Young to create diplomatic protocols that both sides could accept. It was delicate work. The Coalition members were used to long debates and careful compromises. Humans preferred direct action and clear solutions. Finding a middle ground would not be easy. 6 months after the Battle of Valari Prime, the new galactic order was beginning to take shape. The Kethran Empire had retreated to their core worlds and showed no signs of further expansion. Several other aggressive species had followed their example, pulling back from contested territories. The coalition had grown stronger with several new species requesting membership. The promise of human protection was a powerful incentive for peaceful worlds to join, and humanity had begun to spread across the galaxy once again. Not as conquerors this time, but as guardians. Human ships patrolled the trade routes, keeping them safe from pirates. Human bases were established in strategic locations, ready to respond to any calls for help. Captain Sora commanded one of these new bases, built in orbit around a strategically important star system. Her Soul's Fury led a small squadron of human ships that could reach a dozen different sectors within hours. Admiral Hyun-Soo remained aboard the Indomitable, now designated as the flagship of the Human Defense Fleet. His ship moved constantly throughout Coalition space, a visible reminder that humanity was watching. The message he had broadcast after the battle had become the unofficial motto of the human fleet. We are watching. We are waiting, and we will answer when the innocent call for help. On Earth, the human government was making preparations for the next phase of their return to galactic society. New ships were being built. New crews were being trained. The fleet that had saved the Valari was just the beginning.